What up, my fellow travelers? You're now in tune to another session of Pondering Wind. I'm the East Wind, and in today's session, real quick, I want to talk about the talk of Genshin right now, which is power creep. Specifically, Neuvi's quote power creep, in which it's actually the fact that his reincarnation has propelled him to the level he's at right now, or upon his debut. Real quick before we jump into this, what is power creep, right? Because right now, the way that it's being used in reference to Neuvi, you would think that Neuvi's just some generic character, and that is not the case. Neuvi was built up to his debut, so it's only right that he lives up to that. Now, let's reverse this scenario. Let's say that Neuvi was a debut character, back there with Diluc and, the rest of them. And now they release a character that has no lore and that is actually a generic character. And that character is more powerful than Neuvi. That is what power creep is. There's no other way to define that. A character that has no lore whatsoever and is just more powerful than a character that has lore just for the sake of being more powerful, so they can kind of sweep the powerful lore character under the rug. Like, they never existed to begin with. That is power creep. I could easily bring up a game that does that, but I'm not. Like, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's definitely a game that tried to vie for Genshin's crown. So I'll leave it at that. Neuvi was built, foreshadowed in lore. And his power comes from the fact that he is a reincarnation of the original power. So, moving on from that, the first thing I want to talk about with this is the claims, the comments that Neuvi is a descendant of the original Hydro Sovereign. In some cases, some have replaced the word descendant with successor. Neither one is true. He's not a descendant of the original Hydro Sovereign. Reincarnation literally means the same entity or soul being reborn or reincarnated in a new body. So in this case, it is the original Hydro Sovereign, the dragon form Hydro Sovereign, reincarnated as Neuvi, or inside of Neuvi with the human-like form as a body. So he has Neuvi's perspective. You can think of this for all of those that are familiar with Netflix, Altered Carbon, 3D CGI anime. It's like that, where they can transfer their consciousness, soul, to a new sleeve body. And this way, the original Hydro Sovereign soul is now in Neuvi's body. I don't think it gets any simpler than that. Enkanomiya prophecy foreshadowed Neuvi's arrival. This was a long time in the making. This is not no overnight plot where MiHoYo just dropped Neuvi out of thin air. He was foreshadowed. It was an unexpected turn of events for us as travelers. Who was calculating when the reincarnated Hydro Sovereign would arrive? It just caught us all off guard. MiHoYo, they did what they were supposed to. It was a massive lore bomb, shock, whatever you want to call it, for us as travelers.
Decided by destiny.
What's that, Mona? Say it again?
Decided by destiny.
Oh, right. To put this in visual terms, as I like to do on a regular basis when I talk about something like this, we can equate this to Okami. In Okami, Amaterasu is the reincarnation of Shiranui. So in this scenario, Neuvi would be the equivalent of Amaterasu And the original dragon form of the Hydro Sovereign would be the equivalent of Shiranui. There's only one difference between them, and it's aesthetic. In terms of power, they are exactly the same. Now, the difference between Neuvi and Amaterasu is that Amaterasu had to go through several trials to reclaim the techniques and abilities of Shiranui, to, quote, reclaim godhood. It's crazy the parallels between Amaterasu and Okami and Neuvi and Genshin. Whereas Neuvi is gonna fast track back to the same level of power as the dragon form Hydro Sovereign. And we'll get to that in a minute. The actual power of Neuvi in comparison to the dragon form Hydro Sovereign. So the difference aesthetically between Amaterasu and Shiranui is that Shiranui's form is ethereal. The tentacles that's coming out of Shiranui are angelic-like. Thus, the reason I say that Shiranui's form is ethereal in comparison to Amaterasu, where there is no ethereal look to Amaterasu. Amaterasu looks like a regular wolf. So that is the difference. Just like between Neuvi and the original Hydro Sovereign is the form, the look, dragon and human form. That's it. At least at the moment. Now, there is a cryptic dialogue between Neuvi and the Traveler. So with that, I believe that Neuvi actually does have a dragon form outside of Teyvat. Now, that's a different topic altogether. I'm definitely going to delve into that, but for right now, all he has right now is a human form. So moving on to the statement that Neuvi's not as powerful as the original Hydro Sovereign. Now, this statement is basically, it kind of negates itself, because right now, to some extent, it's true, right? But it's also false, because based on what I just said, Neuvi is literally the same Hydro Sovereign as the dragon form. It's just that he has this human-like form right now. So there's things that he can't do that a dragon would have been able to do, and vice versa. So the water beam, clearly, and it's not debatable, that blast would come from the Hydro Dragon's mouth. As we all know, traditionally, video games and movies, dragons' main mode of attack is attacks from their mouth. Elemental, fire breath, in this case hydro, that blast would come from the mouth. Neuvi has adapted it to blast it out of his hand. That's simple. Now, the thing that Neuvi stated was that no current sovereigns have full authority over their respective element. So, for Neuvi, that's Hydro. So, automatically, those that say he's not as powerful as his original form, let's get that clear. Let's stop trying to separate that. Or as his dragon form, it's for that reason, that he doesn't have full authority over the Hydro element because of the Hydronosis. Now, based on his final ascension line, the only way that that's true is if he reclaims that authority. So, my theory on that is that he's going to absorb the power of the Hydronosis, the portion of his power that was stolen and put into the Hydronosis. That's the only way his final ascension line would make sense. And it's the only way that the story of Genshin keeps his continuity, in the same way that Apep absorbed the power of King Desiree. But the power, Neuvi has the same innate power over the Hydro element as the original dragon form did. There should be no separation there. And then the whole thing about what I mentioned earlier about the power creep for previous Hydro element characters. No prior Hydro element character should be equal to Neuvi in any way, shape, or form. It just would not make sense. For what reason? The lore does not match Neuvi's. And we're talking about the sovereigns here. their power is on an entirely different level in comparison to regular vision holders. I don't even get why that was a thing, to say like he power creeps this character. He was built up by the Lord. If MiHoYo failed to deliver on that, or he failed to live up to that, it would have been a massive fail. So it was only right that he lived up to that. He is literally the hydro element itself. Again, all the dragon sovereigns are elemental beings, and of their respective element, they are literally that element, the actual element itself. There is no way you would be able to beat the element itself. It's clear with the way that Neuvi cannot destroy hydro slimes. They are immune to the source element. So what made some people think that hydro element characters could supersede Neuvi is beyond me, or should supersede Neuvi, or be equal to him, is crazy. And just to prove I'm not biased with this, if the Dragon King became playable, which it is a 50-50 chance that the Dragon King could become playable. Shout out the Way. If you've been playing Genshin for a long time, you should be familiar with Way. He's basically a Genshin theorist, and he goes about his theories in crazy ways. But some of the things he states, you definitely should pay attention to, because he's actually kicking knowledge, whether you believe it or not. But he has a theory on the Dragon King. When I look at something, I always say it could be 50-50. And for Way's theory on the Dragon King, it is definitely 50-50. I'm gonna go with the 50% chance that his theory is true. Going from that, the Dragon King could become playable. Based on the Dragon King's lore, what little there is of it, it is clear. There is a reason that the sovereigns called him the Dragon King. He was above them in terms of power. Now, I have some theories on that, and it's another topic, but I believe that the Dragon King had abilities that they didn't have. In fact, we could say that is fact, because he was actually able to leave Teyvat and get a power from outside of Teyvat, then return with that power. That's crazy. So it leaves a lot of questions. The main one being, what type of power did he have at that time to do that? Not to go crazy into that, but if the Dragon King dropped tomorrow, I would expect the power difference between Neuvi and the Dragon King to be slight or large. And I would not call that a power creep, because the lore dictates that. The lore tells us that the Dragon King is the Dragon King for a reason. The same applies to any character from Celestial. There's no way that the debut characters, the default characters when Genshin first came out, are going to remain at the top of the Genshin power chain. It would be foolish to believe that, especially with the way the lore is for Genshin. It's only right. We're now in the 5th region of Genshin. There's only 2 more regions left in terms of the traveler talking to the respective archons about the sibling. We know that we have to run into both Abyss and Celestia characters. So if you really believe that debut characters are going to be on the same level as these in-game characters, that's crazy. You already know that Dane is going to supersede a lot of characters. That's not debatable. I just wanted to talk about that real quick. As always, thanks for listening. Peace.